I'm going to tell them two things. Number one, when you're sitting down with your investor, you control the process. You lead them, you take the one-up position, and you help guide them to the result that they want. That's your job. The second thing is always tell them what's in it for them. So we call this the trading value rule. So even if there's not a next step, you're going to understand what some of these deals look like and how you might benefit from them. So even if we don't do anything, you're going to have a better understanding of what's possible. So I got to trade value for those things. So you've got to understand your job is to guide them through the process. If they're guiding you, you're in a bad position already.
Welcome to the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, this is Agostino. To make it as a real estate syndicator, you have to be able to sell yourself and sell your deal. This is absolutely vital enough for me to dedicate an entire series to this very subject. The truth of the matter is that you won't get any momentum in your syndication business if you are unable to close your investor and get them on board with what you're selling, whether that be yourself or a deal. Now, today's guest understands this. He is an international speaker, author, and sales leader. He has 3 privately held firms that serve some of the well-known and well-recognized brands in the United States and generates revenue over $50 million. Now, additionally, he is a creator of the Sales Blog, one of the most respected online resources enjoyed by thousands of readers globally. Finally, he is the author of the best-selling book, Eat Their Lunch, Winning Customers Away from Your Competition. And he's also the author of The Lost Art of Closing. Now, with all that, I'd like to welcome Anthony Iannarino to the show. Anthony, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. And I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm always happy to talk about closing. So if you watch something like Glengarry Glen Ross, you'll see Alec Baldwin play Blake, right? Yeah. Always be closing. A, always B, C, closing. Always be closing. And right now in the world of B2B sales, people are like, never be closing. Wrong answer. Always be closing. Okay, but you have to understand that closing is a process. So the thing that's changed most in the world around closing is that there's 2 kinds of sales. So the first one's transactional. So in your world, a transactions be like, I'm going to buy a little duplex. No big deal. Throw them some cash, make them an offer, do this thing, it's done. It's simple. It's a transaction. There's not a lot that can go wrong. It's very simple and easy. Now, the Rockefeller building, different deal altogether. Okay, so now this is complex. So complex means you don't do this very often. They don't do this very often. If you get it wrong, you got it wrong, and that is not going to be good for you. So you have problems. So the things tend to mean that you're going to have a lot of closes. So in the book, The Lost Art of Closing, I give you 10 different closes. So there's 10 things that have to happen for you to get your deal. And the easiest way is to think about this is just to go through them. So the first one is like, I'm going to pitch you. So I got to say, Augie. Can I call you Augie? Yeah. No, Agostino. I'm Anthony. So no, man, I'm Agostino. That's fine with me. Agostino, I want to ask you for 20 minutes of your time to give you an executive briefing on this thing that I'm doing, this project. You're absolutely going to be interested in this. I'm certain of that. But even if you're not, you're going to know what things are going on right now in the market and some things that we might have that might be interesting for you. So even if there's not a next step right now, I want to make sure you get to see these things and you'll have some opinions about it. I'd love to get your feedback. What do you look like Thursday for an executive briefing at 3:00? Okay, so that's the first commitment. First, I got to get you in a room. I got to get you somewhere where I can talk to you. I need your full and undivided attention. I'm not going to do that over the phone because I'm old school. And a guy that goes by his first name like Anthony and Agostino, I'm not Tony, he's not Augie. So what that means is we're going to sit down and we're going to do this like old school. We're going to talk to each other across a table and we're going to get intimate and have a really good conversation. So that's number one. Right. Now, number 2, Agostino has no idea what the hell's going on. This guy's coming in, he's got something. What is it? So here's what I'm going to offer you. We're going to have a commitment where we're going to explore whether or not there's something that we can do together. That's it. I'm not asking you to buy anything. I'm not asking you to give me your money. I'm asking you, can we have a conversation about what's possible? What the potential is on some of these things. Does it make sense for your portfolio? Is it something that you should be doing right now because you don't have enough of this or you have too much of that and you need to start balancing things off? I don't know what the reality is, but let's just have a conversation to explore what might happen. And that's it. So that's very, very low pressure, right? I don't need to give you any pressure. I don't have to hammer you. I don't have to be aggressive. I need to make sure that I create value for you, saying these are things that are worth your time. These are investments that are going to help you grow your portfolio too and make you money. So that's what we're here to do. Okay, so this is tricky. Time, really hard to get. Explore, super easy. Like, people love exploring. That's not a problem because they're not committed yet. They're just talking. So just talking is fine. Now, when you start asking me for commitments, then things change. So the third commitment, number 3, so we got time, we got explore, and now we got the commitment to change. So I don't want to have 25 conversations with you to find out you don't have the money, you're not interested in doing this, it doesn't make any sense to you, you're not going to be all in with me, you're not emotionally attached to this. I don't want to keep going down this path unless there's something real here. So I'm going to say, Agostino, listen, based on the conversation that we had, does it make sense for you to put your time and your energy and some of your money in a project like this? Does it make sense for you to do this if the return was what I said it was? And now it's up to you to say, like, Anthony, I don't know right now. I don't know if that makes sense to me or not. Like, well, then what information do you need to be able to make sense of that? But I want you to say, this is a kind of thing that I would definitely go into a deeper discussion about because it is something that looks like it's right for me. And I would put the time and the energy and money in it if it's the right thing. Okay, good. So now we can proceed. I'm not going to proceed with somebody who is a pretender. Like, you don't have the money, you're just being polite. I don't need you to be polite. Tell me the truth. I don't want to do this. If you don't want to do it right now, good. We know each other. When I have another deal, I'll put it in front of you. When you have something interesting, you can reach out to me and I might be able to help you in some other way. So now at least we know each other. The next part after that becomes the collaboration. So for a lot of people, there's a conversation that we're going to have. So this is the 4th commitment now. Now I need you to sit down and say, what's a deal going to look like for you? How much cash can you put in? How much are you willing to put in way of some additional network connections that could bring some money into this project with us? Like, I might have a whole bunch of things that we're going to collaborate on. So I don't know your business like you do, but I know that there's this conversation about what does this look like? How are we going to structure it? What's the right thing for you? What are you going to be most comfortable with and that we're both going to do well on? So I'm going to have that conversation. Now, the next one is a tricky one. So collaborate's generally easy. People like to do deals. Like, we love to talk about deals. That's easy. Now we got to get real and find out who else is going to be on your side. So if there's going to be consensus, if they have a business and they've got partners and they've got other people that are going to be engaged in that, I need to get them into the room. Like, you got to bring them into the room. We can't talk about this and then have them not understand what we're talking about, why we're talking about it, how we're going to go about this. So it's the consensus that I'm looking for. So you tell me I have a partner. I'm like, when do we get your partner in this room? How do we do that? And how do we do it soon? Because I don't want them to be so far behind you in the decision-making process that they can't catch up. And they're like, wait, like, you're going way too fast for me. Well, the only reason it feels too fast for those people is they weren't brought in early enough. So if there's going to be partners engaged, you got to get at the table. Like, you got to get them at the table so we can move them so they understand and they're part of the solution. I don't need them to be an obstacle. You're going to have naysayers no matter what you do. I don't need them to be that. So I'll bring them in and make sure we manage that process. Okay, that's 5 commitments I've given you already, really fast. So this is the way deals progress generally. The 6th commitment, though, is we got to talk about money. Now, I might move that up in your world. I might move that up and say, I'm looking for $17 million. I'm looking for 17 million. Is that something that you're going to be able to do? So I know what the number is, whether it's with a bank or whether it's an individual, I know what the number is. So we got to talk about money. So a lot of times, if money is going to be the factor, I'm going to move that up in the conversation. Because if you go, dude, I got like 400,000. You're like, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I don't have any way to help you. Like, okay, good. So now I know. But if they say 17, but you got anything bigger? Like, can you give me a bigger slice of that? Can I do 25? We're having an interesting talk about money now. So that's okay. So that's the next one. So then I have to show them what the program looks like. So at this point, it's kind of like a presentation. This is the property. This is what we're going to do. This is how it's going to generate the returns. This is what our exit strategy is going to look like, whatever you're going to show in that presentation. And then they have to say, yeah, I agree. I'm in on this. Cool. Not a problem. Now, here's where things go sideways. So we're now through 7 commitments. So we've had, this might be one call, This might be 3 meetings. I don't know. It can be different for everybody depending on the speed of the deal and the people that you're working with. But the next thing that pops up tends to be this, I don't know. Well, what don't you know? I'm not sure about this. Okay, well, what are you not sure about? So people start to have concerns. And so those concerns start to get them to say something like, Agostino, I need some time to think this through. Well, you don't need time. Time doesn't make you make better decisions. Information makes you have better decisions. So you got to give them information, not time. Now, if they go away by themselves, they're sitting there still ignorant of all the things that they need to know, going like, I don't know how to make this decision. No kidding. That's why I'm here. I'm here to help you make this decision. So let me give you the information. If you're concerned about this, this is how we're going to structure this so that we don't have to worry about that. If you're concerned about this other thing, this is how we're going to take care of that so we can make sure that we're bulletproof, right? I don't want to have a problem. I got money in this and I got time in it like you do. I don't want to lose any more than you want to lose. So this is how we're going to resolve those concerns. After you resolve their concerns, then asking is the easiest thing. Like closing is the easiest part of this. I'm going to tell you this, and you probably know this. I'll ask you for your input on this. I think getting through all those other conversations is way harder than asking. Asking is simple. I'm going to say, Agostino, unless you have any other concerns, I'd like to ask you to sign this contract, and I'd like you to sign a check to go with it for $17 million so we can do this thing. Is there anything else you need, or can we go ahead and get this done? Like, that's it. Like, it's not hard to ask for that commitment. That's the simple part. The hard part's like, get your partners in the room. Well, one of them's in Europe right now. He's not going to be back for 3 weeks. Get him on a Zoom. Like, how do we get him in here so we can move and we don't miss opportunities? Those tend to be harder conversations around closing. So when you think about closing, what you're really trying to do is say, how do I have all the conversations, and how do I get the client or the person, the investor in this case, to say yes to these commitments so we can walk through this thing together. So it's kind of like the buyer's journey. And the buyer's journey is an interesting thing. So I'll just tell you this from my view. I'm a B2B guy. So I sell B2B, big companies. I went to base camp on Mount Everest in 2010. And before I went to the doctor and I said, I'm afraid of having altitude sickness. And, I want to be able to walk around Lhasa and Tibet, and I want to go up to Mount Everest base camp. And he said, here's some altitude sickness pills. And I'm like, cool. So now I'm good, right? I flew out of, Chengdu in China, and we never descended. We just went from 15,000 feet. We just landed at 15,000 feet. That's how high up you are. So immediately getting out of the plane, you're like, you got to get air into your lungs. It's super hard. So we got to base camp, and I had a Sherpa there with me, not a real Sherpa. I had a guide who took us through all the mountains. It's 3 days to get there from Lhasa. And I'm taking these altitude sickness pills, and my hands are tingling, my arms are tingling, my face is tingling. And I say to the guide, like, I don't feel good. Like, I'm tingling all over. And he goes, are you taking altitude sickness pills? And I said, yeah. And he goes, that's why you feel that way. And I'm like, no, this is so I don't have altitude sickness. And he goes, no, that's why you have this sickness. That's what you have. Stop taking them. And I'm like, well, my doctor gave me those. So here's the thing. My doctor's a good doctor. He's a smart guy. He knows some things about medicine, and he certainly knows how to write a prescription for altitude sickness. But he's never been to the Himalayas in his life. He has no idea what it's like to stand on base camp 1 at 17,200 feet, gasping for air. And so my guide said, throw those away and start walking faster so your lungs will start working better and you'll feel better immediately. And just like that, I feel better. So you do deals, the investor does deals too, but you're the one that's got more interest in this deal, more knowledge about the deal. So who should be leading the conversation? Is it the person whose money we're asking for, or the person that's asking for the money? In my view, it's our job to guide them through this path. Like, I need to know, don't take those pills. You're not going to feel good. This is the right decision for you to make, and here's why. So I have to be the guide. I have to be the one that guides them through the conversation because I'm asking them for their money. So you have to be buttoned up. You got to understand the deal. You got to understand the math on the deal. You got to understand what their returns look like. You got to understand what their concerns are going to be. It's your job to help them make a good decision. So a good decision means they understand the decision. They're going to have their concerns resolved. Somebody's going to help walk them through this in a way that they understand it and that they're going to be comfortable moving forward. And then I can ask them for their business. Now, I didn't tell you what the 10th commitment was. So the 10th commitment is both of us have to do what we say. So we got to execute this thing and we got to make it work. And I might need your help, and I might need to come back and ask you to do some other things to help make sure that we're successful here, because you're in this thing now, right? So I need you to execute and I'm going to execute. So that's 10 commitments. Now, I don't want you to think it's 10 meetings. It might be 3 meetings, could be 2 meetings. I don't know how many meetings it is. It's going to depend on the deal. The bigger the deal, the more meetings. Generally that works. Smaller the deal, not a lot of stuff to talk about. Simple, give me $600,000, you're in. Okay, simple, easy for people to do. But as the decision gets more complicated, then you've got to take more time with people. And if you want to go fast, especially in sales, if you want to go fast, go slow. The more time you take solving their problems, resolving their concerns, making sure they're comfortable, making sure they have all the information, the faster the deal goes. And I would challenge you to tell me about your experience. But I think that when you have those full conversations and people get into the details and they're understanding it and you're teaching them about what the deal's going to look like and why, it just goes faster because you spent the time with them. So if you want to go fast and do deals faster, go slower because you'll do more deals faster. If you try to go fast, then deals tend to go slow because it's like, I didn't have enough information about that. I don't know what I should do now. So guess what I'm going to do? Nothing. I'm just going to pause.
Yeah.
That's how your deals die.
And that's typically what happens, right? At the very end, it's kind of like either they get analysis paralysis, whatever that terminology is, for this specific thing, but it's like they're trying to go too fast and not getting anywhere, so they're just like hold their hands up and I'm not doing this anymore, right? This is too hard. I'm not going to do it. And that's typically what happens. I find is they just give up. And I think that's something that's worth amplifying here is that something you said was you have to have the knowledge. You have to have the knowledge of not only how the deal works and how it's structured and the returns and all that jazz, but also the lingo. Do you sound professional? Is your pitch perfect? And I don't mean perfect in the sense that you have like in a joking sense. It has to be perfect. Like you have to really practice it and master it, and then of course make sure you're able to deliver the return, your return objectives and how this deal hits those return objectives and what the returns look like and what's in it for them. You know, the WIFM, what's in it for them, with an actual number. You know what, Anthony? I sat through a pitch the other day. And at the end of it, they're asking me for, I think it was 1.2 million or something like that for some deal. I don't want to describe too much of it because they might be listening. And at the end of it, they couldn't even tell me what the returns look like.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why would I do this deal? How much equity do I get? That's up for negotiation. I'll tell you what.
No, you don't have a plan.
You have a plan. You have nothing.
Yeah.
You have nothing.
You don't have a plan. That's right. Yeah.
You have no idea what the equity looks like. You have no idea what the returns look like. There is no plan here. You guys have no idea what's going on.
They've been better off saying like, we're going to give you like 4%. We think the return's going to be just around 4.5%. And you're going to be like, I'm going to need more than that. At least we have a conversation, right?
Right.
You have to pick some number. Like you didn't do the math before you sat down with me. Like that's not a good look. Like you got to sit down and do your math and then structure the deal because you're pitching something that you don't even know what you're pitching. So how do I say yes? So this is the thing I would tell you. Your confidence when you're pitching someone. Now, I've not done deals the same size that you've done, but I've done deals that my first deal as a B2B salesperson, my first large deal was 5 years, $10 million a year. So my first large deal was $50 million over 5 years. That's a huge deal for a 23-year-old kid to put together. Like that was a huge deal. But my confidence, so I would tell you, if you know your subject matter, if you understand your deal, if you understand the metrics, if you understand how everything works, you put a plan together so that I am 100% confident in the information I'm conveying to you. Because if there's a tiny shred of doubt, now you know this because first off, you're bald like me. And so that means you had a lot of experience that caused you not to have hair anymore, same as me, whatever that was for you. But if there's a tiny bit of a lack of confidence, like if you just sense a little bit of they're not confident, now you made me unconfident. That's what you did. You took all my confidence in the deal away because you weren't sure. And you're better off being overconfident. And the way that you become overconfident is know your deal. Like you have to know how the deal works. So if you don't know how the deal works, then you cannot convey that to another human being. So your pitch does have to be perfect and you have to be buttoned up, because somebody like Agostino who's doing deals like this, he's going to ask you questions. So that when they ask you questions, like if you're like, well, I'm not really sure about the return. Well, then why are you sitting in front of me? Like,
Right.
what are you offering me? You're offering me a chance to consult you and tell you what you should be expecting as a return. I'll send you a bill for this at the end of this call, for you're wasting my time not knowing what you're asking me to do. So the more clarity you have on your deal, the more you understand it, the more confidence you convey, it's easier for other people to be confident. And you're playing a big boys game here and a big girls game. Like you're not playing a baby game. This is a game where there's real money being changing hands, and there's a lot of wealth being created. So wherever those two things are true, you're responsible to show up as somebody who can play in this game. So that means you have to do your homework. You have to study. You and I had a conversation before this about reading books. Like if you're not reading, if you're not paying attention to CNBC, the Wall Street Journal, if you're not paying attention to commercial real estate, if you're not studying, you're already behind. So you got to play a game of playing catch up where I'm going to know more than the person I'm sitting down with. And listen, there's a psychological sort of phenomenon that I'll share with you. This comes out of a study that came out of England in the 50s. There was a guy that was studying psychotherapy in London hospitals. And what he discovered after watching all these interactions with psychotherapists and their patient is that there was a hierarchy. So somebody's one up and somebody's one down. So somebody's one up and somebody's one down in the relationship. And what happened is the person who needs psychotherapy shows up and they're like, doctor, I'm having this problem. I need some psychotherapy and I need some help. And then they take the one down position and the psychotherapist takes the one up position. But then after they get to know them a little bit, they're sitting there and they're trying to have this relationship. They'll say something like, Dr. Agostino, you know what? You've never helped me. You never listened to me. I've gained nothing from all the time and money I've spent with you. And then the psychotherapist, knowing that they have to maintain their one-up position, says nothing. They say nothing at all. In fact, Freud figured this out. Make them lay down on a couch so their feet aren't planted on the ground. Sit behind them so they can't see you respond to anything they say, so you can maintain the one-up position. And then that's what psychotherapists learn to do. Like, you can't take the one-up position away from me. So here's what I would tell you. If you're not in the one-up position, you're not the one that's teaching, you're not the one that's leading this conversation, then you're in the one-down position. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be in the one-down position in this particular area. Like, this is a place where there's more consequences for being in the one-down position. So you have to figure out, how do I know more than you? So that's the trick. I need to know more than you know. Now, if you know more than I know, then I might be in the one-down position, and I'm going to leave in the one-up position because you're going to even me out. I'm going to learn everything I can from you so that I leave in a better position than I got here, if that turns out to be true. But your preparation, your planning, your deal design, all of that stuff, you better have that buttoned up before you ever step into the room, or you're in the one down. So I would say the scenario that you gave me, these people are hustlers. They're out there trying. I get it. So try, fail. But when you fail, don't fail without learning the lesson. And the lesson here is you better be up in the one up position, and you better be prepared to have the conversation that moves people through that structure that I gave you. You got to move them down that path. They're not going to go down that path on their own. And if they do, you should worry about them. Like, yeah. if they just go like, yeah, I'm happy to write you a check, you should be very worried about that individual. You're going to have a problem with them later on.
That's right. And that comes down to vetting out your investor too. That usually comes later on, where what I do is I vet them out. Are they negative people? If they're negative, I don't want to have anything to do with them. Are they going to be a problem down the road? Is this their last $100,000? I don't want it. I want nothing to do with it. Right. I'd rather leave that person alone and just go find another investor. That is absolutely key. But I think one thing too that many, especially new investors, forget or don't do is they don't anticipate the stall or bad questions or questions that the investor may actually ask. They don't even anticipate it, and then just to your point, they're unable to answer it, and then they look like they're misinformed, and then they're in a one down position because they look like they're in a position of weakness, right? You have to be able to anticipate what they're gonna what they may come up with, and you better be able to answer it.
Well, and one of the ways that you do that is, I mean, anytime something that surprises you and you didn't know, that means from the future, I've got to be prepared for that question every time. So don't let any experience go by without you deciding what I learned from that. Like, how did I learn from this? Any bad thing that happens for you, you don't need to repeat it. So the way that you don't repeat it is you understand it and say, I know what I would do different to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So you got to learn from these experiences that you have. And you got to get some good education. So knowledge is important, but knowledge from people with experience is more important. So there's a lot of people that want to play, but there's not a lot of people who are actually playing. And so you got to go someplace where you're going to get somebody who's actually doing the work, because that's the only way you really get this kind of experience.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I think part of it is that if you're able to read books, that experience doesn't have to come from a live mentor, although I highly recommend it. But I mean, you touched on this a minute ago. Reading plenty of books, getting as much knowledge as you can into your head, so you're always maintaining that one-up position. You're able to provide value to that investor, right?
Yeah.
In terms of, not only in terms of like money, financial value, but if you're able to give them information, give them advice, they're going to stay engaged with you longer.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not always just about a deal. Sometimes you're maybe they're into cooking, and you happen to read a book on the history of food, and you're able to give them some really interesting facts. They'll stick around because they love cooking, right? It enriches your life.
This are relationships.
Yeah.
So this is how relationships work. We're human, and I know that there's a group of people in Silicon Valley who are all going to marry their robot girlfriend, but for the rest of us, like we like actual human beings and real physical, intimacy versus sexting or something like that. So like there's a whole thing where now we've become super transactional. And I'm going to tell you, in a world where everyone's super transactional, relationships win. I mean, that's half of the game is the relationship. And you're right. You do a deal with somebody, you're gonna do another deal with that person. I mean, so treat it that way. You want to treat everybody that way. And I'll just say one thing about books. Like I have a little book on my shelf, The Tao of Warren Buffett. And all you have to know is, if the asset that I'm buying right now is a great asset, I have to know that someone in the future is going to pay more for this asset than I just did. Like I need to know, how are we getting out of this thing? How are we going to do this? Somebody has to be willing to pay more. Why is that going to be true 5 years from now or 6 years from now, whatever it is? So you got to study and you got to read. Like if you're going to read anybody, read Warren Buffett. I mean, read it. And the book is it's this thick. It's tiny. It's a tiny little book. And I think somebody who was related to him, maybe one of his daughters or something, wrote these. I don't know, there's like 100 little principles on maybe 2 paragraphs. And you read it and you're like, I get it. And I understand this. He's buying things that you think are not worth anything. And then they're worth a lot over a long period of time. And you think you're going to be getting in and out of things. And he's getting in there for the longest of long hauls. And I don't know. I mean, he's worth $100 billion?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Relatively successful, right? Relatively successful.
And the information's out there. And if you don't want to buy it, you can go down to the library and get it there. And we talked about this in the green room too. It's the wealth of knowledge from these hyper successful people, and it's right there. You just have to just listen to it, read it, consume it. That's it. And
$25 and 6 hours of your time,
yeah.
and you get a lifetime of lessons for almost. I mean, it's like stealing.
Yeah,
it feels like stealing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it's one of those things that as you guys out there that are listening to this, you go out there and you're making your pitch, you're practicing. Then practice on your family. What did you do right? What did you do wrong? Record it even. What sort of things happened during the conversations that you were stumped? You didn't know, right? Know the answers. Practice your inflection. Practice your voice. Practice your pitch. All these things are absolutely critical. I mean, I even take it so far, Anthony. I even look at micro expressions. I look at hand gestures. I look at positioning, where they're sitting, how they're sitting. I go that deep whenever I'm talking to an investor to figure out, are they in or are they not? I want to know, just to your point, I want to know as quickly as possible. And then possibly either wrap it up, or maybe they're not an investor today, maybe they're an investor in the future, or maybe they'll never be an investor, right? Maybe they'll continue consuming our free content. I'm perfectly fine with that. Don't care. I'm okay with it. There's plenty of investors out there, but these are the things that you have to, I mean, I didn't just learn this overnight, just like the same way you didn't either, right? I mean, it took time.
Yeah, it's time.
Yeah.
It's time and the reflection. So you got to reflect on what happened, and I think the thing about deals, and I'm doing different kinds of deals in B2B, but there are a lot of big deals, but the B2B deal, like when something happens, if you sit down and you write down like what happened, why do I think that happened, and then you start to objectify it. So it's not in here anymore. Like the emotional part where your heart's still going like this, like that part's different. So then when you put it on paper, now it's out of your body and you can look at it objectively and say, what am I supposed to take away from this? Like, what am I supposed to take away? I went too fast. I was in front of the buyer. So I was way up here. They were way back here. They couldn't catch up with me. So I should go back and make sure I bring everybody up at the same speed, because when they fall behind, it's really hard for them to understand where we are because we're past them. And you'll find that you sit down with one investor that's got a partner, and the one is tracking with you the whole way, and the other one's still way back here. Like, I'm still with Explore. And you're like, we're talking about the money right now. And they're like, I can't talk about the money right now. I'm still back here. So if you can think about that structure of the 10 commitments and you say, like, I need to try to keep them just moving smoothly from the beginning to the end. Smooth is better than fast. Yeah. So smooth will get you there safely. And if you have a jagged sort of back and forth and start and stop kind of thing, much harder to close. So you want to try to keep it all on pace. You're the guide. You're the Sherpa. You're the one saying, this is what we're going to do next. Here's the conversation we need to have. And you guide them through that process.
That's right. That's right. Now, you mentioned deals a second ago. So now, what was the biggest deal that you've ever lost, and what did you learn from it?
I wouldn't say it was the biggest I ever lost, but I'll tell you the one that was the most troublesome for me. It was a $2 million deal, and I needed it. I just opened a staffing office on the west side of Columbus. I needed this deal. And I had 5 meetings with the decision maker. I had 5 meetings. I had 10 pages of notes. I understood his business. I spent time there. I did everything right. On a Friday afternoon, we left the meeting and he gave me a verbal commitment that he was going to sign my contract on Monday. My competitor came in Friday afternoon after I left. And on Monday, I got a call saying, we chose your competitor. Now, I had a verbal commitment. So I'm like, the guy's name was Nick. I said, Nick, I'm driving out to your location right now. And I hung up the phone, I got in the car and I drove over. And I sat down at his desk and I pulled out all of the pages that I've had all the notes on. And I said, I understand your business better than anybody. You gave me a verbal commitment. I don't understand what happened over the weekend that would have caused me to lose this deal. And he said, your competitor came in and they offered us a safety manager and you didn't have a safety manager. And I said, where on any of these 10 pages did you describe wanting a safety manager? And he goes, I didn't know I wanted one until I saw it. I was like, unbelievable. Like I didn't know. And I didn't ask if he was talking to anybody else. I didn't ask the question, like, are you looking at other choices? Are you looking at alternatives? I didn't ask any of those questions. I was too young. I didn't know. So I lost that deal, but not without me saying I said a lot of things to him. I'm like, you gave me a verbal. You have to keep your word on this. I did everything I could do as an aggressive, competitive guy, which I am. And the next day, I called him and I said, you're not going to get any value from the safety manager. And you're not going to be happy with the decision you made. And I'm going to be here to pick up the pieces for you. So you can expect for me to continue to call and come and see you, because eventually you were going to give me that contract. And he goes, I don't know, they're really good. They're bigger than you and so on. I had a small company at that time, maybe $5-6 million, something like that. 30 days I call, everything's great. 60 days I call, everything's great. 90 days I call, everything's off the tracks. Like not getting the job done, failing their clients. I kept that account for 16 years. 16 years. And the last 5 of those years, $6 million a year. $6 million a year for the last 6 years of that. $36 million. And because I didn't give up, I knew I was right, and I persist, because eventually you're going to tell me yes. Like I can outweight you, as long as, there's a book by Harvey Mackay called Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. In the book, Harvey Mackay tells a story about his first job in sales. And he was with some veteran, old, grizzled veteran sales guys. And he asked one of them, "When do you give up on a prospect?" And the old grizzled vet said, "They die or you die." And so I modified that a little bit, like they die or you die. And if they do die, you show up at the funeral, make sure there's somebody in the box, or you call for 3 additional weeks to make sure they're not faking their death.
Right.
You hang in there because you don't know what's going to happen. So you just persist, because it never pays to give up. I've never gotten a commission check from quitting. It's just never happened. Like, if you want the money, you got to hang in there and do the work.
Yeah. Well, and I think it matters, though, if someone just doesn't have the cash to invest, though. I think what you're saying is give up on that guy, but don't give up on the whole, like, I'm trying to raise capital or whatever the case may be, right?
No, don't give up on it. Somebody's got, if they're broke, and to your point, I don't want to take somebody's last $10,000.
Right.
They're desperate. Like, they can't be happy. Right. If I give them back 12,500, they wished it was 100,000. Like, your expectations are so far out of range, you can't do things with somebody like that. You have to let them go.
Yeah.
But then move up. And I'll tell you what, the one thing I know about money, people who don't have any, they're poor. So you can't help them. They're hard to help because they don't have any money. And the people that are rich, they're looking for something to do with their money. So you want to go to people who already have the money and are trying to do something with it, specifically because they have the money already. You can't hurt them. All you can do is help them. I mean, you can't hurt somebody who's got money, because they got money. So they don't have a lot of problems that they're still trying to solve, except for, what do I do with this money? I mean, look at Buffett. He didn't know what to do with it, so he bought like 6% of Apple. He didn't even like Apple, but he was like, well, I'm going to throw six. I don't even know what that is. Like maybe $100 billion. It's $1 trillion company. Yeah. He's like, I'll buy 6%. Okay.
But you're right. Yeah, he was not into tech at all.
No.
He did not believe in it, and it's insane. But his problem was, God, what do I do with all this cash? I got to do something.
What do we do with the money? Yeah. That's the problem you're trying to solve for people. I don't have a place to put this money.
Yeah.
I can help you with that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, that's the problem you as a money raiser talking to investors are trying to solve. You're trying to solve the problem of how do you help that person avoid taxes, or how do you help that person invest this liquid money into a physical asset that produces more money? How do you help them with that? How do you help them with depreciation? How do you help them solve problems? And I think many people don't look at it that way. It's not always just about a return. Usually, I mean, that's the predominant thing. But what other issues? And you only get that just by talking to them and understanding what their needs are. And I think that many of the gurus don't cover that kind of stuff. But that is absolutely key. Absolutely key.
I think it is key. I mean, you're trying to help them with the problem that they have. Look, people are always trying to solve their problems. Like my car broke down. I'm a multimillionaire. I don't have a problem. I have a bunch of money, and inflation's going to 3% in the next year. And I've got to put the money somewhere where I can get a return, because in my Chase account right now, I get 0.2, not 2, 0.2.
Yeah.
Nothing. I get nothing back. So I can't let money sit. I got to put it somewhere where I can get, let's say I get 5.75, way better than 0.2, right? You tell me I get 6.4. We might fall in love. I mean, that's okay. You're helping me with a problem that's going to happen. And when the Fed prints, $6 trillion. Now, World War II cost $4 trillion. We spent $6 trillion in a year.
Yeah, less than that. It was less than a year.
Less than a year. And this is what people don't understand about money. So let me share something about money that I know that you may not know, but you will know it after I say this.
Yeah.
A million seconds ago was 12 days. A million seconds was 12 days ago. Okay.
Yeah.
A billion seconds ago was 39 years ago. That's the difference between a million and a billion. A trillion seconds ago was 39,688 years ago. That's the difference between a trillion and a billion. 39,688 years ago, a trillion seconds. So imagine 6 times a trillion seconds. You would be going back like 240,000 years if those were dollars. Like that's how far back you would be going in time. So money's a very interesting thing for people to understand. Like a million sounds like a lot of money. It's nothing close to a billion.
Yeah.
And so when you look at a guy like Bezos with 200 billion, like what do you do with 200 billion? Now that's mostly paper for him, but he takes some cash out. Like even if you have 40 billion, where do you put $40 billion? Like you got to find something to do with money. So they do. I mean, you buy the Washington Post, you buy basketball teams or football teams, you have to do something. So go help people do that.
Yeah, and that's the thing though too. I think there's also what happens when we start throwing around terms like million, billion, trillion. People don't understand what that means exactly when you print off $6 trillion in 6 months, in 6 month span. I mean, it's here's something I heard Robert Kiyosaki say is that in the money supply, okay, the one for every $5 was printed in the last 24 months.
Yeah.
Every $5 that were ever in circulation, in the U.S. circulation anyway, was printed over the last 24 months. And you think about that, it's that whenever I say that to people, the light bulb goes off, but it's like, wow, that can't be good, right? And it's like, no, that's not good. That's very bad.
Well, so if you go back when Bush took office in 2000, the debt was 5 trillion.
Yeah.
That was from George Washington to George W. Bush, 5 trillion. Okay, so and most of it didn't happen on George Washington's watch. So we know that most of it was recent, right? Starting maybe with Reagan. In that area, we started running pretty big deficits.
Yeah.
Okay, so from Bush, then Obama takes over and takes it from 5 trillion to, Bush takes it from 5 to 10 with the war. So Bush ends at 10. Obama takes it to 21. Trump takes it to 27-ish. We'll be at 30 in a few minutes.
Yeah.
So that's the trajectory. So when you print money like that, and in this, the Fed is doing everything they can to control this. They want 2 to 3% inflation right now. That's what they think the economy needs. They'll take 3 for a little while before they do anything, because there's wage pressure and there's a lot of other factors going into this right now. But it is not good to print $6 trillion because every one of those dollars is now worth less.
Yeah.
So that's the problem, and that's why the Fed rate to banks is 0. However much you want to lend, we'll give it to you.
Yeah. Oh no. Hey, listen, that's the thing, and that's a problem that you guys out there listening, if you guys are trying to raise money, that's a problem. That's a problem for a wealthy individual, right? They know all this.
Yeah.
Right? They know. So it's like, hey, listen, I can help you put your money into a physical asset. I have an asset, and here's what's so special about it. You should invest with me, and here's how you do it.
If you have millions in the bank, you can get 0.4. You can get 0.4.
Yeah.
Like that's an abysmal return. Like it's abysmal. You're basically getting nothing for your money. But if you buy an apartment complex, you've solved your problem.
That's right.
I mean, you're solving somebody's problem for them.
Yeah.
They can't accept 0.4.
Yeah.
Money only works for it if you put it to work.
Absolutely. 100%. Now, Anthony, for someone listening right now, if you had a piece of bulletproof advice for them, what would you tell them?
I'm going to tell them 2 things. Number one, when you're sitting down with your investor, you control the process. You lead them, you take the one-up position, and you help guide them to the result that they want. That's your job. The second thing is always tell them what's in it for them. So we call this the trading value rule. So even if there's not a next step, you're going to understand what some of these deals look like and how you might benefit from them. So even if we don't do anything, you're going to have a better understanding of what's possible. So I got to trade value for those things. So you've got to understand your job is to guide them through the process. If they're guiding you, you're in a bad position already.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to maintain that one up.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, excellent. Well, guys, if you want to reach out to Anthony, you can reach him via his website at thesalesblog.com. Great domain name, very easy to remember. Go ahead and check it out. He's got, as I said, a lot of great information there for you to check out and teach you how to close. Hope you got some insight on how to close your next investor. All right, this is absolutely key. Hope you got a lot of good insight out of this. All right, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Hey, Agostino here, and I would love to connect directly with you. Text the word books to 202-410-4202 to receive weekly book recommendations from me.